Alright, so the actual process of smithing the blade looks like this. You have a coal fire going, obviously. There isn't one going right now. You have a coal fire going. Throw your blade in, more charcoal on top, fire up the fan. Depending on how hot you can get it, how quick you can get it, how much air you've got coming through, and fuel, totally depends on how long it's going to take to get the steel up to temperature. Usually a minute-ish, 45 seconds to a minute and a half on this bad boy. Once I have it hot enough, I'm grabbing it with tongs. I'm walking said piece of steel into my workshop. My anvil, I've usually heated up just by putting a hot piece of metal on top of it, letting it rest before I'm starting the project. But warm the anvil up, just so obvious reasons. It's steel, temperature, obviously. Duh. Then you're going to start working the material. Now, let's say this is the piece of steel I'm making into my blade. I'm always going to start up here, work down the tip of my knife, go from there. Tons of videos on this on YouTube of the actual process of working a piece of steel into something that's going to resemble a knife. And yeah, so we're going to come here, we're going to work the knife on this anvil from the beginning, using something like this to get it into a rough shape. You're going to use a 3.5 pound, 4 pound hammer, something like this. You're really going to basically work the blade, work the steel initially with a bigger hammer. Once you get the blade shape ish that you want, you're really going to start working it with a 2 pounder. This is my workhorse. Again, there's different ways of doing this. This 2 pounder is definitely my workhorse. And that is working the blade and make sure it's hot enough, guys. That's the other thing too. The steel has to be at the right temperature. If you work it too cold, you're going to break stuff. Again, more videos all over the place about actually smithing the blade. I just want to kind of give you guys a quick process run over for those of us that are getting started. So the 2 hammers, that's what we're going to use to form most of the work. Tongs are what we're using to hold the steel with. Right now, once we get it rough shape, no giant dents, smoothed out, you're going to take that piece of steel that's now starting to resemble a knife, do a little bit of work on the grinders and the angle grinders, getting the shape that you want, the rough shape that you want, all of the imperfections out that you want out. And then we're going to go to quenching. Quenching is taking said piece of steel resembling a knife, getting it hot enough so it is no longer magnetized. Now you can use any magnet on the planet. Try not to use your wife's fridge magnets, but to test to see if the metal's hot enough so it's no longer magnetized. Once you figure out what that looks like, you're usually set. Anyway, you get it hot enough, you get some oil. I just use cooking oil because I'm going to be putting it in the oven after the fact to temper it, and I don't want my oven smelling like my house, my kitchen smelling like old motor oil. So I use old cooking oil, dip it when it's stupid hot into the cooking oil. If you dip it and then raise it, the oil will actually vaporize, I guess. Is that the right word? I don't know. It'll go into the air and it'll actually ignite. So don't stick your face right over the oil when you're doing this, guys. So after it's quenched, it's hard and brittle like glass. It needs to be tempered. You temper the steel down depending on what you're using in the oven. Again, depending on what you want to be using it for. YouTube videos all over the place online for tempering and quenching. After that, we're going to, and we're not at this process yet in that particular blade, we're going to work on the belt grinder. That's how you're going to get the prettiest, quote unquote, finish on the blade, is with one of these belt grinders. It is doable with one of these guys. Really hard though. And then after you've got your blade where you want it, you're going to protect it with like paper towel and electrical tape, and you're going to start working on the back half. Now this one, I quinched the blade essentially to about here. This stuff should still be normalized, and I can still drill holes through it. The normalized means before you're quenching it, you want to normalize the steel. Basically release all the tension built up in the steel from being formed and shaped so much, and that involves getting it hot, letting it cool down just to room temperature, getting it hot again, cherry red, non-magnetized, cooling it down about 3 times. It takes about 25 minutes each to normalize the steel, but when you normalize the steel, it makes it so it's still straight as an arrow when you quench it. Just fun fact, guys, make sure you normalize in your blades. After that, we're getting into cutting scales and installing them on the blade. That process is a beast of itself. We're about to go about doing that on this blade, and I'll post another video shortly. But this is what we're using here as a hobbyist blacksmith forge setup. Got the railroad tie anvil, whole bunch of tools that are available to you commonly, and a forge that's been created. Everything, these two, this guy here and the forge outside, were the biggest challenges to overcome. And looking back after getting it all done, it really wasn't even that bad acquiring the things that I needed. Fairly cheap, inexpensive getting into it. I've used a lot of stuff that I more or less had laying around. So yeah, stick with it, guys, if you want to get into blacksmithing, forging, whatever. It really is a lot easier than you think, and man, is it a lot of fun. So yeah, have fun, guys. I hope that this helped, and please comment, please like, please subscribe. Take care. Kai S. out.